Welcome to GAMEpoch. This is my first episode in my series, and the first game I'm going to play is Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo. I'm really excited about this series, and I'm excited to play this game. Even though this game has kicked my butt a lot, I'm looking forward to playing it with you guys. So here we go. And, let's go. Here we start. So, look at this. By the way, I want to preface this by saying that, with very rare exception, if ever, all the games in this series are going to be played on actual hardware, with the original consoles and handhelds, or, something to that effect. Like, for example, all the Game Boy games, I'm going to actually play with the Game Boy Player adapter for the GameCube. So that will be convenient. To use that instead of having to figure out how to capture with a handheld. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about, like, the Game Gear and the PSP and the DS and stuff like that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so, what you are looking at right now is the actual Nintendo. This is not emulation. Look at how crisp and clean those pixels look, and how nice the signal coming in looks. This is not your regular video signal. This is not the RF that you had to screw into the back of the TV back in the day that I grew up with. That was all we had for a long time. It's not the yellow composite video signal, which was the best that the original Nintendo could do. And I never even had that. Man, my capture's getting all messed up, I apologize. I don't know if that came through in the video, but my monitor just flipped out. It's not even S-Video, which looks fantastic compared to just basic composite. I actually have never played anything in S-Video, which is a bit of a shame, but, that's just how it's happened for me. Nope, this is something a little different. It's not HDMI either. There is now an NES HDMI mod, but I haven't really looked too seriously into that. It's not something that I'm terribly interested in. It's an interesting idea, though. But what this is called RGB. Now, you should look up RGB stuff. It's definitely worth it. I had to get my Nintendo modded because it does not natively support RGB. By the way, for those of you who don't know, this is actually a secret area up there. I can get on top of the bricks and walk over, and there's some pipes that'll take me further ahead in the game than I'm supposed to be. I will use those in case I die later in the game and lose all my lives, but for the time being, I'm going to play through it straight. Anyway, RGB stands for red, green, blue, and it is a very clean video signal. Actually, several consoles were able to support them natively, but especially here in North America, we just never had cables that could support that signal. RGB cables, SCART cables, or JP21 cables, which are extremely similar to SCART on the outside, but wired up slightly different on the inside. This is hooked up through JP21, just in case you're wondering. And I am using an upscaler. It's a really nice one from Japan called the XRGB Mini, officially, or the Framemeister is his more common name, and that's how I always refer to it. It's expensive, don't get me wrong. I'm lucky it was a business expense for this series. But it's worth it. I mean, look at this. This is being recorded at 1080p, because the upscaler took my RGB signal, which is a 240p, aw, suck, and is upscaling it with very little lag, to the point where I can't tell. That was great! And so I'm able to plug in an HDMI cable into a TV or capture device or whatever. I'm splitting it right now to go to my capture device and my my monitor, my computer monitor. I'm a little bummed that I didn't get to kill that guy with the fireballs, because he actually changes shape. I'll try to show it later, and I'll talk about that later. So I want to get through this RGB thing really quick. So, RGB is the best analog signal that there is. I mean, component is really close, but it's a little bit different. RGB really just divides the color of the signals between red, green, and blue, just straight up. While component does different things, like it has different like light, whites and lights and stuff like that through different signals. I can't remember exactly, so I'm not going to give false information if I can help it. And they're fairly equivalent to each other. I tend to prefer the look of RGB because it seems more, I don't know, authentic, more clear and more true. But that's probably just a perception, so I don't know. You can't really go wrong with either. It's just if you have the support for it. And the Nintendo did not, so I had to get that sent to someone to mod it for me because I'm not comfortable soldering, especially not video game consoles. And I mean, it looks fantastic. This is just gorgeous. My video games never looked this good. Ever. So, this is great. I love this. I love how sharp and clean the pixels look. If you really are interested in learning more about RGB and how to get RGB signals out of all sorts of different video game consoles, and just some basics and stuff about RGB and what it all is, check out My Life in Gaming. Those guys have made a phenomenal educational series purely about RGB with video games. And it's fantastic. So I would highly recommend checking those guys out. And they're really cool guys too. I actually, in preparation for this series, I was running into some issues, and I actually messaged them seeing if they could give me some pointers on, you know, maybe trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, because they also use the FrameMeister to upscale their old consoles. And they responded, and they were really nice. So check those guys out. They're fantastic. My Life in Gaming, RGB series. It's great. And, yeah, the FrameMeister, you can't go wrong with that thing. Oh, what an amazing little device. It looks great. Upscaled to 1080, even, or 720, but, you know, whatever. Even with, you know, inferior video signals to RGB, you know, composite, and especially S-video, look great upscaled. So, it's a good hunk of money. It's like $350 to $450 depending on the time to get this thing. And it has to come from Japan, but oh, is it worth it? I just realized I didn't set my timer. Okay, well, let's just pretend that was 5 minutes. We'll say 5 minutes-ish. This first episode might run a little long. I'm a little bit sad that I've gone this whole time without really talking about this game yet, but anyway, so I just wanted to say that while I love emulation, and I have been an emulation fanatic since the late 90s, when I finally got the internet and a computer that could start to handle that, I've been huge into it. Now, if you noticed, he was it may be hard to tell because that was a Koopa shell and he's technically a big Koopa, but that was actually just a regular Koopa shell that fell into the lava. That was not him. If I had shot him with the fireballs in the first world, he would have turned into a gray Goomba. I don't know why gray, but gray. So apparently the story behind how that originally happened with this game was a bug. And I didn't know that until the Did You Know Gaming episode about Mario glitches that came out fairly recently. So that was a kind of cool little tidbit to learn. But apparently that happened once as just a glitch. And then they decided to actually keep it and legitimize it and just pretend that all of the non-Final World Bowsers were actually just, you know, his servants in disguise or with a magical spell cast on them or something like that. Anyway, fun fact about a 30-year-old game. Actually, this is the early 2016, so this is a 31-year-old game. So yeah, let's talk about this game. Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom and Nintendo came out originally in Japan in early 1985 and in North America late 1985, although the North American release was a little bit limited. It received a much wider release later in 1986, but it was released here that year. Its big impact was really felt in its bigger release in 1986, and that was when it really was clear that it had changed everything. I mean, video cut out on me again. It can't be understated how incredibly important this game is. And this is the reason why I chose to start my series with this game, which is not at all the first video game ever made. It's because this resuscitated and that was really stupid. It resuscitated permanently the video game console industry and changed video games forever. Before this, you know, everything was just kind of arcadey. Limited in scale and scope, and a little more sloppy, generally speaking. This game came out with incredibly tight controls and physics. I mean, you can tell just by messing around with it, especially the more used to it you get, the more comfortable you get with the controls, that they really took painstaking detail on programming the physics in this game. How long it takes for his momentum to build up with the jump button or without, with jumping and moving in different directions. I mean, it's just the amount of control you have over Mario is unreal compared to what we were used to in the arcades and in some of these older games. It was just unbelievable. It allowed for really sweet controls the more advanced you got, and the more practiced and you know, the better your skills were. It also was just kind of groundbreaking for its scrolling element. I mean, a lot of you will know the story of, you know, id Software, with John Carmack and those guys, who actually, you know, it was like an amazing achievement with Commander Keen and Duke Nukem for them to match on PC hardware the ability that Mario has shown. That was a Buzzy Beetle. The ability that Mario had already shown to have side-scrolling levels. I mean, all the time, all these games beforehand had single screens. And when you would move to the next area, it would change an entire screen background. There was no smooth scrolling. So this just felt so fluid in comparison. And I mean, that seems like an incredibly trivial, insignificant thing, but it was huge. Changed gaming. It completely defined what platforming games would be for the next 10, 15 years. And you'll notice I just got a 1-up from getting 100 coins. I actually did not know this until recently, but you see the blinking coin up top. That counter indicates how many out of 100 you have right now. I didn't know that. I noted that was there, I just kind of thought it was like a running total that would run towards your points at the end of the level or something. I never paid too much attention to it, which, you know, I'm just stupid that way. But no, and this is obvious in newer Mario games, which is why it suddenly just clicked. Once you get 100 coins, period, and this carries over from earlier levels, you get an extra life instantly. Little secret block here with coins. So I'm actually going to, you know, attempt, without wasting too much time, to get 100 coins if I can, because I'm fairly good at this game. But I still mess up a lot. Now, I wanted to show you these secret blocks, because right here, this block over here, that is a beanstalk. It's a secret. Goes up to another warp area that takes you straight to World 8. And before I end this video, I want to show you this. So if you hit this instead of going over to the side and moving over, you are locked out of getting that. So you gotta be really careful about that. Anyway, I'm gonna pause this right now and see you guys in the next video. Thanks for checking in. I'll see you soon. Bye.